Hello, it's Veronica with the Crafty Oasis. Today I am making sublimated Grinch shirts for my family for our matching PJ set, and this is the shirt that I'm making. So in the video you'll see me creating the design in Canva, printing it out, and then sublimating it onto the shirt. So let's get started. Once we're in Canva, I will create an 8.5 by 11 design, and I will go to uploads and insert the images. I already have them on my device. So once I upload them onto the canvas, I will remove the background by selecting background remover. I do have Canva Pro. If you do not have Canva Pro, you will not be able to remove the background in Canva. So you will have to do that somewhere else and bring it in as a PNG, which means it has that checkerboard background. So I'm just resizing the images and laying them out how I'd like them to. And I want Cindy Lou Who and Max to be about the same size minus the reindeer antler because they are pretty much the same size. So I'm scooting them as close as I can to the Grinch without them kind of being like right on top of him, especially Max with his antler. And then I want the wreath off to the side. I was trying to do it where I could fit the Grinch, Cindy Lou Who, and Max in the wreath, but it didn't work out. And I like it off to the side as well. So next we're going to add the font. So I just go to text, and select the heading. I always select heading even though I change the font and the size and everything about it. So I tried to find a font that matched as close as it could to the Grinch or to the Dr. Seuss style. And so the font that you actually see in this video in this part is not the font that I ended up going with. But like I said, it was kind of hard to find that. I'm sure if you are able to go to things like dafont.com, you can maybe find one that's actually closer to it. I don't have Dafont, so I just worked within Canva. And keep in mind, some fonts do cost additional if you don't have Canva Pro, so that is something to think about as well when you're selecting your font. Now that we have the font that we like, I'm going to type in Merry Grinchmas in Florida. I thought that was hilarious, and I just really like the Grinch anyway, so I thought it was perfect. You can see that I played with a couple more fonts as well. Again, I ended up going with one that's not shown in the video except for the last picture that shows the final shirt. So just play with the fonts until you find one that you like, or you can use something like Dafont again, where you would purchase the font and then you'd upload it to Canva, whatever you prefer. Next, I'm going to change the positioning and the size of the words. This is going to be on the chest of the shirts for myself and my family. So I need to make sure it's bigger, but also centered a couple inches underneath the Grinch and the other characters. Now that I have the font sizing and position that I like, I'm going to go ahead and change the colors to match the Grinch. So when I select it, if I tap on the colors, there are some, and then I just tap on the down arrow and I can do the color picker, or I can use the colors that pop up from the pictures. So I just used the green that popped up from the pictures. Then I duplicated that text because I wanted to create a red outline. I go to Effects and make this one hollow. Change that one to red, and then I overlap it with the green, but I change the position so that the red is slightly in the back. Now that we have everything how we'd like it, we're going to go ahead and save this as a JPEG. And the reason why we're saving it as a JPEG is so that I can mirror it in my photos. So I'm saving it as a JPEG to my photos, then I will actually mirror it in my photos before I send it to my printer. Okay, now that it's saved in my images, we'll go ahead and print. I have two Epson Eco tanks, and this one is the Sublimation printer. So it sent the mirrored image to the Sublimation printer, and I always make sure that the image on this screen coming up matches my design, and it does. If it does, then I hit print, and I made this for myself and my family. I did my youngest son's shirt for this video, so for the rest of my family, I had to actually change the image a little bit so that it was slightly bigger because my youngest is 4. Whenever I sublimate, I have the heat press, the substrate, the shirt, in this case cloth for underneath, parchment paper, heat gloves, heat resistant tape, and scissors. You will notice I have 3 pieces of parchment paper. This is one underneath the shirt, one inside the shirt, and one to put on top as you're pressing so that the transfers don't go through the backside of the t-shirt or they don't go onto the cloth underneath. I also pre-press my substrate to get any wrinkles out and to get out any moisture. Because I have such a small heat press, I have to cut the picture and press the design onto the shirt in multiple steps and pieces. So the first one is the Grinch characters that I cut out, and I try to cut as close to the characters as I can or close to the words so that way it'll fit within my heat press. I believe my heat press dimensions are around 5.5 by 7.5 inches. In this video, I hadn't sublimated in a while, so I actually forgot how to use the heat press for a moment. So I had to take it off the design and play with it for a second, and then I remembered, eureka, that's what you do. I press each piece of the design at 385 degrees for 30 seconds. Because the smaller heat press doesn't have a lot of pressure, you can move it around in different directions, almost like an iron, as you're pressing. Just be mindful of where the design is as you're moving it around. Now that we're done pressing, we're putting on our heat glove because this is as hot as an oven. And then we are removing that section that we have pressed, and we will tape the rest of it and repeat for the remaining pieces. Now that we have pressed and removed the final piece of our design, it is time for the reveal. Again, our shirts have a really vintage light vibe because I used a cotton poly blend, and the higher the polyester count, the better the sublimation will go. So if you can find a shirt or substrate that's 100% polyester, that would give you the best result, but I didn't mind the vintage look for this because it's for our pajamas. And thank you so much for watching.